So today I'm going to be showing you guys a couple different watercolor techniques. What you need for your materials is you need a basic watercolor set, a variety of brushes. I have a smaller one, a nice like general watercolor brush, and then just a square one and a pointy one just to get some different techniques if we want. And then some general newspaper and then some salt. So the first technique we're going to do is the flat wash, which is your most basic kind of watercolor technique. So you'll just get your paint wet, and when you are flat washing, you want to try to get a nice even coat. So you want to control your water and just move that water around. And you're going to try to avoid those little spots. There. So that's a nice flat wash. And then you just get a nice base color. And then, oh, you also want just a rag that you might to dry your brushes on. Okay. The next technique I'm going to show you is the dry brush. So you want a dry brush for this, and then you'll just get some paint on it, and then you can get a couple different techniques with this. You can get some nice like grassy techniques, or you can get more graded looking. So you can get a couple different things. And it also, if you change your brush, so like let's say I did it with this one, I can get different looks on those. And those are just, your dry brush technique is using a dry brush and then in your already wetted paint. And if your paintbrush is already wet, you can just use your towel and dry it off the best you can, and then go back in and it's pretty much the same. So I'm just gonna take my brush here and get this area wet for later. All right, and then the wet on wet technique is pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna take your brush and get whatever color you want, and you're gonna get it real nice and wet in there, and then you'll want to get a different color. I'll use the yellow. And you mix it in, and this gives it like, they start flowing together. If you see that with the wets, you can mix them up and you can get a nice mix of colors going with your wet on wet. And with the wet on wet, that's also how you approach your graded wash. So let's say instead of orange and yellow, you wanted to do blue and green. So start with your blue. And then you'll come in with your green. And then you start putting them together a little bit, and you can get some of the color off there and just by getting your brush wet again. And you can see how those colors start to kind of blend together up in there. And that's a graded wash. And then for the salt, you just want to get your area, whatever color you want it to be. And you usually want it relatively wet for the salt technique. And then you take some salt. And my salt is a little big. I wish I had some smaller salt for this. But you put it on there. This is not the best salt for that technique. I'll tell you that. But for the lifting off, you again get your paint nice area of paint. And then you can take your newspaper and crinkle it up, and you can lift it off and you get a nice texture like that going. And then now that this area is dry, I can show you the wet on dry. So for that, you need to wait for the original stuff to dry. And then you can go in with whatever you want. And this is just your wet brush, and it just doesn't mix with the color. So if you want the blue on top of the green instead of mixed in with the green, that is what your wet on dry is for. So ideally for the salt, you would not want to use this kind of salt. Instead, you'd want to run your normal table salt. The smaller pieces are going to get you a better look on that. But these are the techniques I'd like you to use in your project. Yeah. I hope you enjoy painting.